And back with us for another big week of talking fantasy sports. Fresh off his vacation is Jeff Erickson from Rotowire.com, who you can follow on Twitter at Jeff_Erickson. Hey, you look different. There's something magical about you after a vacation. I like that.
Yeah, it was fun. I need a haircut. Probably has to do. I'm probably a little tanner. But I was pretty vigilant about sunscreen. I just know closer to the equator, you get fried pretty easily. So yeah, but I'm nice and relaxed for now. And watching a lot of baseball, trying to catch up on lost time.
Before we get to all that, give our listeners the Jeff Erickson full review of Turks and Caicos. Do you recommend it as a vacation destination? And since you did the all-inclusive vacation, talk about a little bit about what you had to enjoy there.
Yeah, I'd recommend it. It was awesome. It was relaxing. Ate and drank a lot. We went to beaches. It was a really nice resort. There are 4 different villages in there, like 20 different restaurants. We didn't really go off campus that much. I would have planned. I think had I done it again, I think maybe would have planned an excursion or two. But aside from that, it was excellent. And yeah, I definitely avail yourself to all the food and drinking you can, because the whole ethos of all inclusive is you try everything, right? So
exactly.
That was one thing. Yeah, I did do that, a pretty good job of that.
So what was the best for you? Was it the steaks? Was it the seafood? Was it something in between? Was it like local cuisine? What'd you enjoy the most?
Seafood, definitely. And just being out in the ocean a lot. I mean, the water there is so beautiful. It's so clear. It's warm. You get that turquoise sheen, especially when the sun hits it the right way. And it's so clean. I live out in LA, and the water isn't warm. It isn't as clean. Yeah, I mean, we have the ocean here, but it's just a different experience.
I understand that. So, okay. So 2 thumbs up, and definitely worth every penny. And the family loved it as well, I would assume.
The phrase "best vacation ever" was uttered a few times, so I think we did right.
That's good. But when it's best vacation ever, now you got to try to top it. That's the challenge now, especially since they've gotten a taste of what an all-inclusive is like at a destination like that. Now you got to come through and do that every couple of years.
You can't make it an arms race. You just have to do different things. I think that's the strategy. We don't have that many years left. I have a 16-year-old and a 14-year-old. They'll be doing their own vacation soon enough. I don't know. Maybe, hopefully, they'll still take vacations with us, but it's going to be a little bit different soon.
Yeah, but the 16-year-old's going to want a graduation gift when high school is over, and that's going to be important. And then in 4 years, your youngest is going to say the same thing. So you've got a couple of decisions to make right now, and to figure out how you're going to try to do that.
Yeah, there's no doubt. There's a lot of other decisions coming up too, colleges and the like. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's get to fantasy baseball. Injuries, that seems to always be the theme whenever we talk, and more big names are going down, and that's been rough. Nothing bigger, though, than the Tyler Glasnow injury and what's happened afterwards. From a fantasy standpoint, this is a killer to anybody that owns Glasnow in any fantasy league.
Yeah, devastating injury. He may not be done for the year yet. We'll see. But I had Will Carroll on my show today, and he really knows his stuff injury-wise. And the thing with him is he's worried more about the flexor tendon issue than the UCL. If the UCL was that bad, they would have already done surgery, is what he said. So, but the flexor tendon kind of leads to the UCL, so it's still not out of the woods yet. And obviously, the big story is the context that it came in here. With the MLB cracking down on actually enforcing the no substances on the ball rule, and all the substances, not just spider tack, not just the most stickiest substances, but sunscreen and resin and things of that nature, and doing that mid-season and trying to prepare for that. Glasnow straight up said that that's what caused his injury. I don't know if that's necessarily true, but at the same time, I mean, it's hard to deny completely that there's a connection there. You don't like seeing rule changes midstream. It's same with our fantasy leagues. You don't like seeing it in real leagues.
One thing he talked about, which was interesting, is that how he's having to grip the baseball differently now because of not using the substances. And that's what he mentioned, is that because I guess he used to have the sticky stuff, he would grip it like an egg and felt that he could throw the ball and it would explode out of his hand. And now he had to squeeze it a lot harder, and thus he felt could put a strain on different muscles that he's never really worried about using before. Now, what's interesting to me is this. Tyler Glasnow is probably 95% of all the pitchers in baseball. So it seems like everybody out there is using in some way, shape, or form. So the big question is going to be, as baseball cracks down, what will happen to pitchers' stats the rest of the way, and will hitters just be able to exploit them?
Right. And the thing is, organizations have been teaching pitchers how to, use these substances. It's not just like, oh, these pitchers came up with this themselves. No, this is like organization driven at the organizational level. So I think you're going to see a lot of crazy things. And yeah, how do you react fantasy wise? That's a tricky question. You can't just trade every pitcher you suspect of using sticky substances. What are you going to get in return for Trevor Bauer? What are you going to get in return for Garrett Cole pitching tonight? In conjunction, our pitcher's going to throw with less velocity now because they have to grip it a different way. That's another thing that we're a little concerned about there. Well, we've seen this never-ending climb in velocity and strikeout rates to go with it there, commensurate together, and lower batting averages. Is that going to reverse itself? And then there's the tricky part about separating that from the usual jump in offense that you see in the summer every year. In June, you usually see a big increase in offense. You see, and it peaks in August, and then you see it kind of drop down again in September and October, but we'll see.
Jeff, this question came to us on the 600 ESPN El Paso mobile app last hour from Robert here in El Paso. He messaged us by saying, "Hey guys, I'm a huge Reds fan." Sound familiar, Jeff? Robert wants to know, do you see them being contenders? That was the question from Robert.
Well, they're in the right division. Contenders to make the playoffs, yes. Contenders to win the NL, probably not. I still think the Padres and Dodgers are considerably better teams, although the Padres are kind of in a bad way right now offensively. They just got knocked around by the Rockies after the Reds swept the Rockies this past weekend. Reds are cruising right now. They're playing really well. The bullpen quietly has been better in the last week after being hideous for 2 months of the season. Lucas Sims locked it down again today, and they don't even have Antone right now, TJ Antone. So, yes, I see them contending. Now, will they do anything to push them over the top? Will they make a trade at the deadline? I'm skeptical. After what they did this offseason, letting Iglesias and Archie Bradley go for nothing, doing nothing to improve their shortstop situation, I'm not optimistic, but if they could use another trade or two, and that would be fun to see.
They've got a young rookie that just has been coming on as a starting pitcher through 6 innings a couple of days ago, and is getting the attention of a lot of fantasy owners right now.
Yeah, Vladimir Gutierrez, he went through an 80-game suspension for anabolic steroids, and then came back this year, and not much was expected out of him. There's always that aura hanging over a guy coming back from a suspension. Like, how much of was his progress in the minors due to the steroids? So far, so good. He throws a lot of strikes. You like seeing that. Tony Santillan also pitched over the weekend with Sonny Gray out, and we'll see. I mean, they kind of have a hole in their 5th spot in the rotation if this doesn't work out with one of these guys, but if they get Gray back and Gutierrez is for real, this is a pretty decent rotation too. And they don't even have to move Antone back to the rotation.
No, that would be huge. Do you expect, just based on his early success, Gutierrez to probably stick around for a while?
I do. I expect the league to adjust to him eventually, though. The game's a give and take, and right now there's not a lot out there on him. There's very few appearances, so I wouldn't be surprised if the league adjusts to him a little bit, and we'll see what adjustments he makes back. Sometimes you see this with young pitchers that the league hasn't seen him. Maybe he has a different sort of delivery. Maybe maybe he's just been running well, actually, too. In his last start, he stranded a lot of runners. That's good, better than letting him score, but it also means that he's kind of dodging raindrops, too.
True. A lot of young arms getting consideration. What can you tell us about Sammy Long of the Giants?
Kind of struggled last night against Arizona, although I'd like to see him just start instead of – I know sometimes it's nice to have an opener in front of you, but obviously didn't work out well yesterday against Arizona. He kind of stepped into a jam right away, and it wasn't great. But, he's a guy that kind of came out of nowhere. This is not on the top of our prospect list. He's not a guy that we're like, oh, yeah, I can't wait to see Sammy Long this year. I think maybe Giants fans felt that way. He certainly wasn't a guy I really had a whole lot in mind to look out for there. So we'll see what he does. Again, you like lefties that can throw hard. And that's one thing he's got going in his favor. But I want to see a little bit more out of him before I kind of race to judgment. I hope he doesn't go with the Tucker Davidson route.
Yeah, that IL injury is a tough one right now, because it seemed like a lot of fantasy owners were jumping all over him, and then you find out the bad news.
Yeah, I think he was in over his skis just a little bit too. So we'll see. I mean, maybe I'm not giving enough credit to Long, but he doesn't have the draft pedigree. I mean, he just kind of he's one of those guys that earned it through his performance, and he jumped 2 levels this year too. So we'll see. I mean, and that's just the thing. But if you look back at 2019, he was an A ball through 112, had through 97 innings and had 112 strikeouts. So he's always been able to miss bats, and you like seeing that. Maybe he is legit. We'll see in his next outing.
When was the last time we had a pitcher come up the ranks, not on anybody's list, not just pitch well, but really start to become almost a fantasy mainstay, but wasn't on anybody's radar at that point?
Well, Zach Gallen, I think, of right away is, a guy that, prospect hounds knew who he was. He got traded in the Ozuna trade, but he wasn't an elite prospect. He added velocity, and then he took the next step up. And that's what you're always looking to see. And, that's what we were robbed of last year. We didn't see these guys work on another pitch, add velocity, change something here and there, change their pitch mix, and, just get it. Sometimes it's just learning how to set up hitters too, right? It's just the experience. And we didn't see any of that. We saw, some pitchers did pitch at the alternate training camp site and maybe graduated, but we saw precious few guys like that were new to the talent pool. We're going to get a lot more of that this year.
Jeff from Rotowire.com talks a little fantasy baseball with us each and every Wednesday on the program. You mentioned Will Carroll earlier. When you talk to Will Carroll, it's always about injuries. There's a lot of guys on the IL right now. Some are worse than others. Let's talk about some of the bigger names out there.
Well, Shane Bieber has to be another huge one at the top list. Earlier this season, Steve, we saw, more hitters than pitchers getting hurt. And we're like, okay, well, maybe all the precautions that we've taken so far were going to lead to us like maybe avoiding like catastrophe. But this week it's been pretty bad. This week, obviously the Glasnow news hit, but Bieber is almost as serious. He's on the 10-day IL with the right shoulder strain, and he's shut down from throwing completely for 2 weeks. And they're going to reevaluate him after that. That means we're going to miss a month out of him, and Cleveland can't afford that. They're built on pitching. They've already lost. They've already lost Plesac, and now they've lost Bieber, and they're down to Savali, and then like they're patching it together with duct tape and super glue after that. Whether it's Giancarlo Mejia, Cal Quantrill, it's not pretty.
You're 100% right about that. Cody Bellinger, another one that went down. This time it's a hamstring injury. Bellinger just hasn't been able to put it together this season.
No, it hasn't. And I wonder if this is part of the old dreaded kinetic chain. He had the leg injury earlier, which ended up being a hairline fracture. At first it looked like it was maybe like a tear in his hamstring when he got spiked and that there. So maybe that's, I got to wonder if that's connected at all there. So we'll see. They are hoping that'll be a minimum trip this year. I mean, this trip with the IL injury. But because he was day to day for a while, and I think they just ran short on their roster. He said, okay, he's not going to be ready today. We need the extra body on the roster. But yeah, you're right. Only 71 plate appearances, only 1 homer so far. It's just devastating.
Gene Segura has been really good this season for the Phillies. This injury he suffered yesterday looks like it could potentially put him on the IL.
Yeah, in fact, he did get put on the IL. Running out that ball, late in the game last night. They put him on with the groin injury. We'll see. It could be, with these muscle injuries, sometimes it is a minimum stay. Sometimes, you think it might not be that long, and then next thing you know, it's a month. They've already had that with Didi Gregorius too. And the thing with Gregorius is that's the one that is a little bit weird to me, because at first, day to day, maybe minimum stay. Now that they paused his rehab assignment. But now they're like, they keep on changing it. And, it looks like they found something different in the diagnosis with him. And, it's kind of scary, and he's already not a great defender to begin with there. So you worry about that a little bit with him.
Let's talk about guys coming back right now. And there's a few of them. Zach Gallen's going to start tomorrow for the Diamondbacks. You also have Michael Conforto on his way back for the Mets. Luke Voigt is targeting a return on Tuesday. And how about this? George Springer feeling pretty good after his rehab appearance, so he could be heading back for the Jays. Yeah,
that's a big one. The Jays have had him for like 4 games so far. Unfortunately, I can't pitch relief for them. They're desperate to get some good help there in the bullpen, but they haven't had him, and they're going to score a ton of runs with him in the lineup. They're putting him at the top of the order, him getting on base a lot. That's a big one. And they came back too soon last time, and that's the thing you worry about. Again, leg injuries, muscle injuries, quad injuries. He originally was going to be day to day. And now here it is middle of June and he's played 4 games.
It's just not good. It's just the way it's been so far. So those are all players that could be on their way back sooner rather than later as far as fantasy owners go. Hey, some other interesting news, and I want to throw some names at you of guys that are really kind of turning it around. Austin Gomber seems to be getting better and better for the Colorado Rockies. Yeah. Boy, what a groove he's in right now.
Ever since we made him a verb in the fantasy world for that one disaster start in San Francisco, he's turned it around. He's been very good, and he's been good at home, believe it or not, in Coors Field, which, you never expect that. The thing is, the thing that I like about him is he's cut down on his walks. He was walking guys a lot early on this season. You look at his last, his game log, ever since that disaster start in San Francisco, he's had no more than 1 walk in any given start. That's impressive. In fact, in that stretch, he's pitched 53 innings. He's had a 52-4 K to walk. He's given up 7 homers. That's kind of the consequence of contact a little bit there. But boy, he's really turning it around. I mean, at least they got something for Nolan Arenado.
There you go. Bobby Bradley's been in an incredible run right now for the Indians playing first base.
Yeah, it's funny. He's already outproduced Jake Bauers at first base. It makes you want, the Cleveland, they did something really kind of weird this year. Bradley was the better player in spring training. He was the better player all along. But because Bauers was out of options, they did the financial thing. They went and Bauers gave him the job, thinking maybe give him a little bit more time before we have to make this move. Finally, they had enough, and now Bradley's got the job. And I don't think he's starting tonight because there's a lefty on the mound, but I think you're going to see a lot of him. I think he was once a pretty decent sized prospect. And in fact, he still qualifies as a prospect in some leagues, but he's not that old. He's only 25. He got a cup of coffee in 2019, but he struck out a lot. And it looks like he's doing a little bit better job of that right now. That's the thing I'd watch for him, is to see how bad the strikeouts are. But so far, only 4 Ks and 27 plate appearances. You like that?
Jeff Erickson from Rotowire joining us here on Sports Talk as we continue. What about a guy that a couple of years ago came up, did some great things, and then tailed off and really hadn't been heard from until now, and that's Jake Fraley of Seattle. You buying this resurgence?
I think he's going to have some playing time for a while. They sent down Kelnick. Fraley's going to be playing for a while. But also keep in mind, Kyle Lewis is out for a really long time. The things I like about Fraley is he will run and hit for power both. It's kind of like a poor man's Tyler O'Neill in that respect. He will walk, though. That's the difference between he and O'Neill. I mean, that's actually a really substantive positive difference there. 22 walks, Steve, and 78 plate appearances. I didn't realize it was that much. I knew he had a decent eye, but he's taken it to another level. Only struck out 17 times so far. So, yeah, maybe this is a new skill with him. Maybe I judged him wrong.
Who's going to win the Miguel Andujar, Clint Frazier playing time battle out there in New York?
Well, I think Frazier's a better defender, which is weird saying after what he went through the past couple of years. But Andujar, I mean, he's actually doing something with his plate appearances. And I think as much as the Yankees have had trouble scoring runs, I think Andujar deserves another chance. Here's a little red flag, though. Okay, and we mentioned Fraley's K to walk. Andujar is the opposite. 3 walks, 23 Ks on 110 plate appearances. It's not a ridiculously high K rate, but at the same time, it's enough to be a little bit of a concern. You'd like to see him get on base a little bit more often.
Jeff, I want to ask you about your football coverage at rotowire.com. Is the football yearbook already on its way to the printer?
The magazine is off to the printer. It's done. It's signed, sealed, and delivered. Now, any changes that we make will be only on the website, but it'll be available at newsstands soon. We are going to go back to the newsstands for this one here finally, but we can also sell it off the site. Should be available in the ensuing weeks. Rotowire.com/magazine. You can find it there. But a lot of hard work was put into that by our crew.
I'm excited, especially because right now we got a lot of mini camps, and whether it's mandatories or voluntary camps, and starting to, kind of wonder what's going to happen with some of these big storylines out there. We were talking before we brought you on between Deshaun Watson out in Houston and Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. Who knows where they're going to end up and what their seasons are going to look like. Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, they may not end up, in the case of Watson, he may not play a snap, or he'll be fine. We don't know. That's the weird thing about that one. If you're in a single quarterback league with any sort of bench whatsoever, throw a late round flyer on him, and you may get a top 5 quarterback for nothing. So it's a weird year. Maybe we'll have some definition by August to September on that one there. And Rodgers, same thing. He's not at minicamp now. He seems adamant that he's going to not play for the Packers, but I wonder, can he pull the leverage to get to generate a trade? We'll see.
Well, you got a lot of stuff going up right now at rotowire.com. When do most fantasy football drafts start? July?
Late July, yeah. I would say once players and teams start having training camp. After the All-Star game is typically when we dedicate more coverage, more media resources towards football, and football drives our bus. It drives everybody's bus. It does multiple sports. So don't worry, baseball people, we're going to stay with you the whole way through, but then we start adding more and more football talk. The football podcast will start up then on a regular basis. We have like 1 a week now. We'll go back up to 5 after the All-Star break. Very
nice. Hey, by the way, welcome back. It's good to see you again. I love the view from the Erickson house, the backyard. That looks great. And I look forward to talking to you again right back here next week, Jeff.
Thanks a bunch, Steve. Take care.